Oh boy, it's a preview episode, but it's not just a preview episode, Sam. We're previewing a championship fight.
It's the final preview. I'm sure that's what the original lyrics were to that song. I can't believe it. We've got a three-way championship fight going into Abu Dhabi. This is pretty hype. This is pretty exciting. Harry, you look very hype.
I always look very hyped, but I am hyped because I've never looked forward to an Abu Dhabi GP more. Maybe 2021. No, I'm going to say now. I'm looking forward to this one more than 2021 because I think I was scarred by the time we got to this point in 21. So this one is the most exciting one yet.
Oh no, I've got something wrong with my throat. Hang on.
Are you okay?
What's that? Cough it out, mate.
23 races down. One final showdown to go. As the sun sets over Abu Dhabi, so too will the title hopes of two drivers. For one, however, the opportunity of a lifetime awaits, a chance to etch their name into history as world champion. Will Verstappen cement his legacy, or will McLaren make history as they become the first team ever to cut the Drivers' Championship in two and let their drivers have half each? The final battle awaits. The countdown begins now.
I didn't realize we got Jabba the Hutt for the show.
Sorry.
Is that bad, mate?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. My throat's a bit all over the place. Yes, Lando Norris. He's the one who has his destiny in his hands. He's 12 points clear of Verstappen, 16 clear of Oscar Piastri. Sam, does this make him the natural favourite for this championship?
I mean, in theory, it does, yeah. But with the way this championship's been going, it's been so topsy-turvy that Max was, 100 and something points back only a few Grand Prix ago. Piastri was leading for the majority of the season. And Lando Norris has done a great job at clawing things back until the last two Grand Prix, where they had the disqualification in Vegas. And then he was unable to get onto the podium in the main Grand Prix, which he needed to do, of course, to ensure that he was really solidifying his championship hopes. So it is not all as swimmingly calm as I'm sure he would have hoped for. And I just remember in 2021 how excited we were when we were watching Hamilton Verstappen, and they went in, of course, on the same points, even with a half point, to the level that here in the UK, Channel 4 managed to negotiate that they would broadcast.
I'd forgotten this until the other day.
Free.
Yeah.
It was on the telly for free in the UK. Not seen that, apart from Silverstone, for a long time. And there was also a custom intro that F1 put together of them racing side by side with the points tally going up. Very cool. I was very excited back then. I'm very excited now. And I do think that Lando Norris really just has to get the job done at this point. And all the risk comes down to Max Verstappen and, bizarrely, Oscar Piastri, who is now by far the biggest outsider, despite at one point being over 20 points clear in this championship. It's been such a topsy-turvy year.
And over 100 clear of Max Verstappen, who is now ahead of him by 4 points. But they are both chasing Lando Norris, Harry. Do you think he's the favourite, and how does he approach this weekend?
I mean, yes, still the favourite, I believe, because he has a 12-point lead over his nearest competitors. So you have to look at the numbers here. He's going in as favourite. The last two GPs will not fill him with confidence. Obviously, one disqualification and one absolute howler on the pit wall, but he has to remain confident in his own abilities going into this one, because in Vegas he didn't do anything wrong. In Qatar it wasn't his fault, obviously, for the pit stops or the pit stop or strategy error. I think his head dropped a little bit later on in the race, but for the most part, he's not done anything wrong, and he has managed to still maintain a lead, if albeit it's a smaller lead. So, for him, I think his mindset, I think he needs not to be on the defensive, which I worry he was maybe a tiny bit in Qatar. And when I say be on the defensive, I just mean he doesn't want to get into an accident, which obviously he doesn't want to. That's not ideal. Especially if it's Verstappen or Piastri around him. But when you start to drive like that, looking in your mirrors, which I know he said in the interview after the sprint that he never was, but it can't be helped, I don't think. But when you start to drive like that, I think that's when you run into risks. So he just needs to be confident. He knows the pace he has in himself. He knows the pace that McLaren has, and it should go well here. I think he absolutely dominated this race last year. I know Verstappen and Piastri took each other out at turn one, but sorry. Verstappen took Piastri out and won.
50-50 challenge.
All of us
footed into the side of him. 50-50.
Yeah. But yeah, so that did help Norris in that. But he dominated here last year, so they should be strong. He should be strong, and I think that's what he needs to. He just needs to believe in himself, Lando, as he goes into this one.
Does he almost need to? Is it as simple as treating it as if it's the first race of the season and all points are zero? Like, is that how he needs to attack this race and not even think about the permutations?
I think so, yeah, because that's going to be so difficult. But that's the point. He has the advantage of the points, and obviously it's not the most comfortable one, but treating this as any other race, which I think for the most part he has done this year, then I think he should be fine on that one.
Yeah, I there are so many permutations, and I think he should ignore pretty much all of them, with the exception of if I finish third, I win. And that's not to say he should race to finish third, but he should certainly not get into his mind about, well, I could actually finish fourth if this result happens and finish fifth if this result happens. There's no point in thinking that way. All he has to do is do something that he has done in 17 of the 23 races so far this year, and that is finish somewhere on the podium. And even in the 6 races where he hasn't finished on the podium this year, I don't think we can walk away from any of them and say McLaren didn't have the pace to finish on the podium. Has there been any race so far this year where we felt that McLaren doesn't deserve to be in the top 3? I don't think so.
Canada at a real push, but I'm being picky here.
Canada was the first one that came to mind as like the toughest challenge, because it didn't seem like there was much between them, Red Bull and Mercedes there. But I still feel like Lando Norris starts on pole, starts second place. He probably finishes there. So he doesn't need to overly worry about this. He will be wanting the most boring weekend of all time. And I think pretty much anyone who isn't a Lando Norris fan, for the sake of the championship and an exciting fight, will want the opposite. But Lando Norris will just want to turn up, FP1, 3 practice sessions. They are quick in all of them. There's no worries about the weather. It's a comfortable one stop if it's following last year's, it's same tyres as last year. It was a comfortable one stop last year. He will just want the most boring weekend possible. The thing I think he needs to slightly worry about, Sam, and I've mentioned this a couple of times over the last few weeks, he'll naturally be looking at what Piastri and Verstappen are doing. I think he can deal with both of them having an all right race, because both of them can beat him and he can still win this championship. It might be Mercedes who are the spoilers here.
Yeah, there is a real risk that their engine providers could be the ones that come along and snatch away a driver's title inadvertently without almost realizing. And Lando Norris has got to be careful. Whilst he, of course, has the easiest job of the 3 title contenders right now, it's not all plain sailing. We mentioned dealing with this as if it's a standard Grand Prix. Well, he should have done that in Qatar, and he didn't. His start was botched. He gave himself damage. The pace wasn't there for the most part anyway. And he was always on the back foot, even with the strategy blunder that McLaren threw at him, which wasn't his fault. But nonetheless, he had to fight back. Piastri did manage to get pretty much as much out of it as he could. Norris didn't. Only just getting 4th place due to a mistake from a car in front. It could have been even harder. So I do think coming into Abu Dhabi, he'll want it to be as simple as possible. I really don't think it will be. And when these drivers get into their minds that they only have to hit a certain target, so regularly throughout the history of Formula One, you find these drivers struggle to hit what should be a really basic target. We've spoken so many times about, they only need to finish 5th or only need to finish 3rd. And they've spun on the first lap and have to cut their way back through the field to try and make it back. And look, I'm not complaining. It's exciting. It will be thrilling to watch if that's what he has to do. And if he goes on to do it, fair play to him. But this is the race where he could achieve the thing that he has been looking for his entire life. He could become a Formula One world champion and join the greats of this sport. Equally, he puts one wheel wrong at any moment and he could throw the whole thing away.
And that is why we love this sport. We're, of course, focusing on the approach of the 3 drivers, Harry, but there is the other factor of the team here at play. McLaren, of course, very much involved with how Qatar went down. How do McLaren handle their 2 drivers going into this weekend?
With great.
How should they?
This is a tricky one, and they've only got themselves to blame on this. So they've boxed themselves into a corner on this one. But I don't think they can be in a position where they say to, for example, Oscar Piastri, if the scenario arises where Oscar Piastri is in the way of a Lando Norris World Championship, I just don't think, and it's their own fault, but I don't think they can say to Piastri to get out the way to allow Norris to win. Now, who knows where we get to if that does happen, but I know they want to be is fair, but I think they have to be fair about this and let these two drivers, no papaya rules, no rules of engagement, just let these two drivers race each other for this title. Now, obviously, Norris holds the advantage versus Piastri on this one, and we're sort of looking at a Norris versus Verstappen fight for the title with Piastri at an outside chance, but yeah, they can't get themselves into a Qatar situation again where they won't make a decision because they're worried about the impact on one of their drivers, because as we saw in Qatar, it went absolutely terribly. So they have to. It's sort of similar to what we were saying with Norris. You can't be racing on this sort of back foot defensive mode, which I think McLaren slightly were with the call they made in Qatar. They can't. They've got to look to attack. They've got to look to win, and it will be up to the racing gods, and they just need to accept that.
I just think they should do what they should have done before Qatar, which is sit them down and talk to them like they're adults and not children. Like, just, we'll keep things as fair as we possibly can. We'll give you both as the same information. But if one of you wants to do something different, and that person is more likely to be Piastri based on his championship position, we'll let you. Because we know Norris knows Piastri wants this more than anything. Piastri knows Norris wants this more than anything. They're not stupid. They understand that. They can throw the papaya rules in the bin, as you say, Harry. And if they even contemplate asking Oscar Piastri to help Lando Norris, I'd give up with this team, because firstly, like, it's stupid. Secondly, refer to point one. Thirdly, there's no need to necessarily complicate this, because Oscar Piastri, unless I've really misread him, is going to turn around and tell McLaren to jog on, as he should. Like, why would he, even if he has a remote chance of winning the title, he has fought a career for this. He's not, when he's got a mathematical chance, one race to go, potential championship, he's not going to help his teammate, nor should he. So don't even entertain the idea. Just put it to bed before we even get to Abu Dhabi. There's a Verstappen approaching, Sam. He's been slowly approaching ever since about the Italian GP earlier in the year. He has erased that over 100-point gap in the championship. Of course, the new McLaren driver in the lead is now Lando Norris, but it's just 12 points. I wouldn't want to be McLaren.
Out of everyone that you could have had, I mean, there's only one man that really could have erased a 100-plus point gap to a car that won the Constructors' Championship almost 10 races ago. You know, the dominance that they had at this point is extreme. This car, this lineup, they should have had both things wrapped up. It should be so far away out of the reaches of Max Verstappen. But because this team likes to do everything on the back foot, weirdly winning the Constructors' Championship has almost put them on the back foot. That now they, we give everything to the drivers. It should have released them to play completely freely, and it hasn't. And you need to take a massive chainsaw and cut that team right down the middle and let them just go at it like two separate garages. Because Piastri, even if he wins the race, which is what he'll be trying to do, doesn't guarantee him anything. And you can get the best scenario for both drivers. I know that's really harsh for Piastri fans, but Piastri can win and say, I couldn't do anything more. You let me do it. I won the race. Couldn't do anything more. If Norris is in second place, he still wins the title. And I actually think that McLaren need to be careful that they are not going to actually destroy a really good driver-team relationship by undoing all of the hard work that they did build up the previous season and the start of this season, where they actually really got on good terms with their drivers. And Max Verstappen feels like he's the man with the key to unlock this horrible McLaren lock. One twist and it all falls apart for McLaren, because if it does result in Max Verstappen walking away a 5-time world champion, 5 consecutive world championships rather, That will be disastrous for McLaren. Zach Brown will look a fool. Stella will look a fool. And Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri will be furious that something has gone so wrong internally that this has walked away from them and gone into the hands of a guy that was so far behind that he hated the car. There were rumors that he was about to leave the team. He hated the car so much. And there's a real chance that could happen should they call the race incorrectly again on Sunday.
And you mentioned Verstappen has the chance to win 5 consecutive championships. It's worth mentioning at this point, he would be only the second driver in history to do that after Michael Schumacher did it about 20 years ago. Harry, I feel like Max Verstappen's demeanor after the Qatar GP spoke volumes, because I think he's been self-confident in himself his whole career, but all throughout the year, to win each and every Grand Prix if the car gives him a chance. I felt after the Qatar race and realizing what had happened with McLaren throwing that race away, his face screamed, I can actually do this.
It did. I also, have you ever seen a sports competitor look less bothered?
That is it.
On the verge of being the second 5-time Formula One.
The most relaxed guy ever.
Just so chilled. And that, if I was the 2 McLaren drivers, would terrify the poo out of me, because the only time now, the only chink in Verstappen's armor is when you get him frustrated. When he's frustrated by the car being bad,
Spain.
Or he gets frustrated. Spain. Example 1, Mexico last year, example 2 with him and Norris. It's only then when you get him a little bit rattled that he starts to show a weakness, but that's not very often. He's like the polar opposite. He's like nowhere near that being the case. And I know he was a bit annoyed by the performance of the car in Qatar when he got to the sprint and quali, but that soon turned around. So yeah, that in itself is, I think, a terrifying prospect. He's just so calm. But I think I don't think that's an act. I think that's genuine, because Verstappen has always said he's just not bothered about winning loads and loads of world championships. Now, I'm sure he does, like the stat of being a 4-time world champ, and he would love the stat of being a 5-time world champ. But it's never been, being a champion was the goal. And the 3 since then have just been like a bonus. He's just on like the bonus missions of a video game at this point. And he's just picking up extra prizes along the way. So I'm not saying he doesn't care. I think that he definitely does care, but his relaxed demeanor, it's certainly going to work in his favor here.
What about Oscar Piastri, Sam? Because I feel like there are 2 possible ways in which he could approach this weekend. Option 1 is focus on himself entirely. Try and win that Grand Prix and do not care about what else happens. Lando Norris will need to finish in P6 or worse if Piastri were to win this Grand Prix. But if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Or the other way of looking at it is he will be focused on what Lando Norris is doing, and just at any opportunity, try and do the opposite, whether it's a safety car, a virtual safety car, giving himself some sort of potential advantage over his rival. Which one do you think is more fitting to his situation?
I think Piastri is he's a very admirable guy. I think he's very above board. I can't see Piastri trying to do something underhanded or undermined and trying to trip up Norris in some way. And I think that he will bounce off Qatar. It was such a good weekend for him. He is going to be seething that he didn't get the race win, because he deserved it, quite frankly, with the pace that he deployed. I think he'll take 2 things from that race weekend. I was the fastest person all weekend. All weekend, he was the fastest guy on that racetrack. Secondly, I'm furious that I didn't get the race win, which I very much deserved. And you know what? The title probably would have been closer for it had Piastri got on that race win. But hey, there it is. But he will come into this Abu Dhabi Grand Prix and he will just look to dominate, I think. I don't think he'll want to play silly games. I don't think he'll want silly chatter over the radio. I think he's fed up with all that from his team. I think he wants to pole position, get the car into the pit lane where he suits best, drive off into the distance. And I think he will hope that there's some kind of chaos between Max Verstappen and Lando Norris in behind him. And you know what? We've seen Max Verstappen deliver some chaos before, especially with Lando Norris. That's happened on a regular basis. And it happened with the McLaren this time last year. If the same thing happens again, but those McLarens are swapped over, we have a real fight on our hands.
I'll tell you what, folks, you are going to want to stay tuned for this weekend's action, not only on track, but also on this podcast. We'll be here with our race review on Sunday, our qualifying review on Saturday. And you'll want to stay tuned later in the episode as well when we give out our poll 1, 2, 3 predictions, which will ultimately decide who we think is going to win this championship. You'll want to listen to that because last week we asked the question, how many drivers would still be in this title fight in Abu Dhabi? I said it would already be settled in Qatar, and you both said 2 drivers. So we were all wrong. So you're going to want to stay tuned for our predictions. Of course, one final preview means one final under pressure submission for the year. Take it away, Harry.
Under pressure, unsurprisingly, for the Abu Dhabi GP, it's the McLaren pit wall. There might be a few of these coming up, I suspect. But look, after the howler that was Qatar, I say McLaren pit wall. I just think McLaren as a team because the strategy foul up in Qatar plus the disqualification in Vegas, they've had a rough couple of weeks. So nominating McLaren for this one. It's a big race for them.
With that in mind, thinking that at least one of you might go for McLaren and probably a lot of the Discord going for McLaren as well, I've gone a little bit further down in the championship and I've gone with Alex Albon because he hasn't scored in 7 straight races now. He did have a result in a sprint race, I think, but in 7 main races, he hasn't scored. It's only him, Lance Stroll and Franco Colapinto who can say that. And after Italy, Albon was ahead of Antonelli in the Drivers' Championship. He was P7 overall, and he had 70 points to Carlos Sainz's 16. Carlos Sainz was P17 in the championship at that point in time. They are now next to each other. Sainz is within 9 points of him, and if he repeats either what he did at Qatar or at Vegas, he will beat Alex Albon this year, which didn't feel like a thinkable thing not that long ago. Might be slightly time to panic for Alex Albon, who is hanging on in that teammate wars fight. Not that it matters for our overall submissions, but we all pick Sainz to win. So that'd be a nice 1-pointer for us as well. Sam, who's under pressure?
So I'm glad that someone's done for McLaren because I don't have to. And I like that we've gone with Albon. It's a bit different. I'm going for the one and only Lewis Hamilton. My man in the last 3 qualifying sessions has not made it out of the first competitive session. And I think that might be the first time in his career that he's done 3 in a row Q1 eliminations. Of course, one of those being last for the first time ever on pace alone. He's also never finished outside the top 6 in the championship in every season he's ever competed in Formula One. And he's only 2 points clear of Kimi Antonelli, which would relegate him to 7th. I also just think he needs something to go right. Otherwise, this man might lose his actual mind. So, Ferrari, if you're going to bring any kind of Abu Dhabi package, just give it a go, just for the morale. Just do it for the morale. Literally a normal weekend where he scores points at this point would be solid.
We'll mention Ferrari a little bit more after Under Pressure, but if you want a more in-depth chat about Lewis Hamilton, that will be kicking off our most recent Patreon episode that we'll be recording directly after this. So make sure you're a resident of the city if you're not already. I'm just going to give you a bit of an opinion when it comes to Ferrari at this race, and it's going to sound like I'm joking, and I promise you I'm not. I am being deadly serious about this. So you know how they got disqualified earlier in the year at China?
I'm aware of this, yeah.
They should just run that same car again. Like, they should run that car as low to the ground as they want, because so what if they're disqualified? They are locked into P4 in the championship. You can't convince me that Hamilton and Leclerc actually having some competitiveness and then getting disqualified is worse than what we had at Qatar for them. There's nothing on the line. I'd say just, if they're disqualified, so what?
Yes, break the rules. I love it.
I love the idea that Ferrari would decide the championship by winning. They get a 1-2 and then both get disqualified.
No.
Oh, sure, that would be very Ferrari. I just don't see the value in 8th and 12th again, you know?
Even if they weren't winning, just get them in the mix.
Sure.
Out loud.
Get Hamilton fighting again with some drivers. It isn't doing him any good, being down in 12th. So
just, in The Incredibles, where Dash is allowed to use his super speed, and in the race right at the end, the second, that'll be
make it close.
Friggy Vass on the line. Go close, second. We could easily win, but it's illegal.
you know what would be the most Ferrari thing ever is if they did do that, they were like, do you know what? F it. We're going to run it low. So what? We're just going to do it we're glory hunting. Is that they did it and then they didn't get disqualified?
Yeah. That would be really funny.
Not even get spotted.
And then they're like, wait, we could have done this all year?
Get disqualified once for the same car again. No one checks.
They were the furthest away from being disqualified of all teams. Yeah, I genuinely think they should do that. Why not?
Yeah, sure.
Any movement you think is going to happen elsewhere in the championship, Sam? We've got sort of Racing Bulls, Aston Martin, Haas and Sauber in that order. Could see some change there. 5 points between Sauber and Haas is the closest of those four. Do you think they'll stay in the same order, or could one of these teams make a late surge?
For me, that's where the change will happen. I think the Racing Bulls have just done enough to lock themselves in. And actually, Aston Martin are... I'm surprised that they're sitting above both Haas and Sauber with how the tracks have been with the car that Aston Martin have brought. It's so downforce reliant, and so many tracks that we've had at the latter part of this season have been real power tracks where maybe a sector has massively benefited them, but they seem to be so off it. And when you've got Lance Stroll on your team, you're basically driving with a boulder attached to the back of the car anyway. So it's quite impressive that they are in front of Ocon, Behrman, Hulkenberg and Bortoletto, who are all having very, very solid seasons. For me, I think Sauber have got a really solid chance of getting in front of Haas, and basically it's whether Ollie Behrman has a great race or not. I think that'll be the difference maker. Ocon's form isn't good enough to realistically get him in the mix, I don't think. It is on Behrman to keep them in front, whereas Bortoletto and Hulkenberg, if Hulkenberg doesn't drive into an Alpine, then genuinely they might have a chance. Who knows?
I do think that is maybe part of the reason why Aston Martin is surviving versus these two teams, is that as soon as Behrman started to find form, that's kind of when Ocon's form dropped off. And as far as I'm aware, I could be wrong on this, Sauber, I think they've only scored double points once this season. It's almost been like whenever Hulkenberg's got a good result, Bortoletto hasn't been in the points and vice versa. So that's maybe what's keeping them ahead. Whereas Lawson and Hadjar are a bit closer in the championship to each other. I know Hadjar has maybe been the better of the two, but I think they're only separated by about 13 points or so. Harry, do you expect any change in the championship amongst these teams?
Unless something goes drastically wrong, I don't think so. Aston Martin. Who knows what their form will be this weekend? I guess okay, but it's got a couple of long straights on it as Abu Dhabi, so that's not going to favour them at all. The first and last sectors will, though, so who knows? Hard to know, because that car's actually been set up by a ghost, if you believe what Fernando Alonso's had to say about it. Yeah, I was weird, but yeah, I don't think so. Like I say with Haas, Ocon and Behrman, their form is similar to Racing Bulls. Like, they never seem to really have a weekend where they both have a great race, and I think that's harmed both these teams, to be honest. But maybe this is the last chance of the year where they will. But so far, it's not really happened. So I don't think there's going to be any major moves as we go into the last race.
Well, I think we've waited long enough. I think it's time to hear some bold predictions.
Little children, and listen to my song about my F1 bold predictions and how they'll all be wrong.
Live Laugh of TV started before you finished.
Yeah, he was like, shut up, Meg.
It's been so long. Come on.
The children are gathering, I promise you, even though you might not have heard it.
It's not good.
Me and Harry, I got involved in children gathering.
Bold prediction, Sam. Let's finish the year on a high.
2 of the title rivals will crash into each other.
Oh, okay.
I'll be more specific.
Oh, I like that. That's fine.
Norris and Piastri contact.
Okay. You open the door for me, mate. I'll walk right through. Bring us Verstappen and Norris.
Harry, bold prediction.
The championship winner, will not finish on the podium.
Okay.
So you think Norris?
Well, we'll see when we get to pole 1, 2, 3, I guess. Sam, what have you got?
Pole is going to be Lando Norris. The wing is going to be Max Verstappen. For second is going to be Oscar Piastri. Third is going to be George Russell.
Oh,
Meaning the championship winner is...
Max Verstappen.
I have to really think about that.
I'm just terrified.
I've got pole position Lando Norris, the win Max Verstappen, second place George Russell, third place Kimi Antonelli.
Meaning what the championship is?
Max Verstappen's. McLaren will just somehow find a way. I don't know how. But
Harry, 3 for 3.
Pole Lando Norris. The win, George Russell. Second will be Antonelli. Third, Lewis Hamilton.
And the
How big
championship
champion will
goes to...
be?
Who knows?
Who knows? Who knows?
I'll be real. I'm just trying to keep my preseason prediction alive for the Drivers'
And you know what? If
Championship.
it comes true after everything we've been through, Ben, fair play to you. You enjoy it, mate.
Hey, Hamilton and Leclerc still might have a shot.
I reckon Hamilton could take it if Ferrari bring the right car.
What are the odds on Hamilton and Leclerc having an agreement pre-race to crash into each other so they don't have to do it?
2 to 1.
Good odds.